the earthquakes that have struck Turkey and Syria. And in the latest, the Syrian government has now approved the delivery of humanitarian aid to areas outside of its control in the quake-hit, rebel-held northwestern part of Syria. The statement from the cabinet, however, has said that the aid distribution should be supervised by the International Committee of the Red Cross and the Syrian Red Crescent with the help of the United Nations. The earthquake that killed over 24,000 people in Turkey and Syria is said to be one of the worst disasters in the region in over a century. At this point, as we speak, some 4 million people in the rebel-held northwestern part of the country rely on humanitarian aid. The Syrian government had earlier appealed for the United Nations aid while saying that all assistance must be coordinated with Damascus and delivered from within Syria and not from across the Turkish borders into the rebel-held areas. The United Nations has been delivering aid to the rebel-held areas either from neighbouring Turkey through the Bab al-Hawa crossing or directly across the front lines from the government-held areas. The United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres had also urged the Security Council to authorise the opening of the additional crossings on the Turkey-Syria border for the delivery of the United Nations aid to the quake victims. Currently, just one crossing at the border is said to be open for the United Nations aid deliveries. Members of the Kurdistan Workers' Party group have also announced a temporary halt in the fighting to ease the recovery work in the wake of the massive earthquake. And also my colleague Khadi Francis is presently in Syria and she's getting us updates from the ground. Khadi, over to you. Tell us what is the latest in terms of what is happening on the ground in terms of the relief and the rescue operations for the people who have been affected in this earthquake.
Well, Mohammed, here in Damascus, it wasn't really damaged. The earthquake was felt, but there's no damage, only a small area in a suburb to Damascus. This is why the capital of Syria, Damascus, has turned into the relief operation center. We have went and visited some of these centers, and later on WION, you will see what I'm talking about. People, youth, non-governmental organizations, especially the volunteer work that was initiated during the pandemic. Right now, they are all operating on the ground to gather medicine, clothes, donations, and sometimes food and basic necessities to the more than 5 million Syrians that are displaced. Now, as per the numbers, more than 25,000 people dead in both countries, Turkey and Syria. This is the record, and unfortunately, the record is supposed to become higher after all the rubble is cleared. There is 3 or 4 areas in Syria that are already being flagged as disaster areas, which would basically allow help easier to get in after that, according to the international laws and to the United Nations. When a place is called a disaster zone, then the humanity would rise above the politics. So Syria has said that Latakia, Aleppo, and Hama and Idlib, those are all disaster zones. It is underway. It is supposed to start getting more and more relief and help. Here in Damascus, everyone is operating on the relief. Churches, mosques, non-governmental organizations, and also actors, directors, and the cultural arena. There are always some galleries that are selling. There are some markets that are already donating. So in a way, the Syrian society, in all terms, is trying to count on itself. Especially that there are dire communicating processes, so the rescue is not being able to get as fast as needed and as large as needed. So the Syrians are like a beehive in Damascus.
Absolutely. And also, Ghadi, the fact that Syria is not completely under the control of the government in Damascus, there are large rebel-held areas in the northern part of Syria which are said to be very badly affected by the earthquake. And there's been a huge complication because of who controls which territory in terms of the aid that needs to be delivered to this area, to these areas. And then also the US sanctions which are imposed on the Bashar al-Assad government. Give us a sense of how relief and aid measures are being coordinated, especially for those areas that have been hit the hardest in the earthquake.
Well, all the disaster zones were hit very hard. Aleppo is a big city, and the shape of the disaster in Aleppo has taken a lot of the graphic visuals that the world is seeing right now. I'm sure everyone has seen the amount of rubble in Aleppo, and the northern parts in Syria. It is a disaster zone as well, but the communication is harder. This is why there are many measures that are being taken. We have already interviewed some governmental part of the cabinet, and he said that after that, the government will be able also to proceed in allowing aid to get through this side, the governmental side, into the rebel area. Also, there's the Turkish borders from the northern side of Syria that is being used to get the relief over there. But in terms of the sanctions, you have Latakia, to be direct and accurate, it is called Jabli in Latakia, which is the coastal part of Syria. It is a very hard hit place where the sanctions are stopping help from getting there, and also Hama and the side which the Syrian government controls in Aleppo. Last night and today, the media and the press releases are showing the presidential tour around Aleppo and Latakia. In both ways, the Syrians from both sides, from every side, are under this calamity, and it is in such times that the humanitarian aid is working and trying to process how to get there in spite of the politics.
Absolutely, indeed. Thank you very much, indeed, Ghadi Francis, for joining us and getting us all those insights there. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.